Hey everybody, my name is Uriah Edwards and I'm at our South Tampa location. I'm excited because we're kicking off this brand new series today called Every Day.
Every single day.
This series is going to challenge all of us to make our faith an everyday part of our lives. But what does that really mean? Well, think about the things that you do every day. Brushing your teeth, eating dinner, texting your friends, checking your TikTok or your Instagram feed. For most of us, these are all everyday things and they become a part of our everyday routine. I remember back in high school, I wanted to be the best athlete in my school. I got up every morning at 5 a.m. and practiced, went to practice right after school, did strength training after practice. I was devoted.
Been running for 3 weeks.
One of the things I couldn't stand was my coach made us stretch before everything.
W's.
Before drills, we stretched. Before practice, we stretched. I guarantee before the pre-game meals, he would have made us stretch. I thought stretching was such a waste of time. I remember deciding not to stretch before a track meet my senior year of high school. If I placed well, I would have moved to the next round in the state championship. I remember walking into the blocks. 7 other runners were to my right. The crowd was cheering. Over the intercom, you can hear runners on your mark. Get set. Go.
I'm out!
And I sprinted out of the blocks. For the first 25 meters, we were all neck and neck. After 50 meters, I could see myself getting in front of the pack with 2 other runners, and then it happened. I felt a pop in the back of my leg, and I fell down. I ended up pulling a muscle in the back of my leg. I don't know if you ever had that happen to you before, but it's extremely painful. I remember going to my coach completely frustrated on how that all went down. And he told me, Uriah, you're gonna have to learn to do the small things like stretching, even if it seems pointless. What I realized in that moment is that if you ever want to accomplish something big in your life, you're gonna have to learn to do the small things. And the small things are what we call habits, because we understand your habits will determine the course of your future. Tonight, we want to help you build some of those everyday habits these next few weeks that will help you get to know God and connect with God in a new way. The kind of habits that will make your relationships with God part of your everyday life. And our hope is to grow faith that goes with you everywhere into everything. So let me first ask this question. What does it mean to connect with God? I want you to think about connecting with your best friend, the one you care about, the one you want to stay close with, the one you want to know a lot about them, and you want them to know you too. So you make an effort to do things that will help you stay connected with them every day. You talk or message a lot. You hang out together. You do things that you both like to do. And the more you do that, the closer your relationship is. Well, the same thing can be true when it comes to God. If we want to know God better and keep growing in our faith, we have to do things every day that help us stay connected with God. Now, I get this whole idea of connecting with God may look a little different depending on where you're at in your faith right now. Some of us have been coming to church most of our lives. We've been coming and doing churchy things that we're told that are important. But there are times we still feel disconnected from God. Other of us are still unsure about God. We aren't even sure where we are at in our walk with God or how to even connect with Him because we aren't sure about this whole God thing. No matter where we are in our ideas about God, there's a good chance that we all have the same questions. Questions like, what does it mean to connect with God? Why should I even want to connect with Him? What will connecting with God really do for me now? If you're asking any of those questions, that's perfectly okay. You will never graduate from those questions, even when you get older. One of the best ways you can begin to do this is to look at Jesus Himself, who was God in human body. And Jesus explained that His connection looks like for us in a conversation He had with His disciples. The disciples were Jesus' closest followers who spent a lot of His years following Him. In times together, Jesus was intentional about passing on important wisdom to His friends. One of the disciples named John wrote down some of the details of Jesus' life and some of the things he learned from Him. In one of the accounts he wrote down, John remembers that the disciples were anxious because Jesus kept saying He was going to go away. They couldn't really know what He meant by that. Not only were they worried about what their friend meant by this, but they also had no idea what it would mean for them when Jesus left. So Jesus told the disciples something that would help them in the days ahead, and it actually takes place in John 15. He says, yes, I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit. But apart from me, you can do nothing. Now you might hear this and think vines and branches like in a garden, cool hobby, Jesus. But what does gardening have to do with us? Well, let me explain. Jesus was really great at using everyday examples to teach powerful lessons to his disciples. The vines and the branches were relevant to his disciples because they were around vineyards. It's even likely that Jesus was walking through a vineyard when he said this to his disciples. So let's dive in what Jesus actually meant. Well, branches need a vine to live. A vine is a foundation. It's the source of life. In order to survive, the branches have to stay connected to the vine. In this passage, Jesus called himself the vine. When we remain in him, we stay connected to him. In the same way, a branch needs to stay connected to a vine to produce much fruit. If we want to grow in our faith, we need to get closer to God. We need to stay connected to Jesus every day. So the best way that I can really illustrate this actually comes from this plant right here. One thing that I realized when it comes to shopping with flowers as a guy, one, I realized I'm not good at shopping for flowers really whatsoever. And the second thing that I realized, if a guy's ever shopping for flowers, the preconceived notion is that a guy messed up and he has to buy flowers for that person. But when it comes to Jesus and his illustration, he's using these things called vines and branches as an example to his disciples. A branch, a bloom, or fruits has to be connected to the source of life for it to grow. Jesus wants you and I to produce fruit, but in order to do that, what do we have to do? We have to be connected to the source of life. Because if we're not, well, then we become so disconnected to the source of life, we need to keep growing. That's a source of life for you and I. It's Jesus. Just like a branch needs to be connected to the vine to survive, you and I need to be connected to Jesus to have the life we've always been created to have. If we want to know more about God, if we want our lives to show it, we have to stay connected to God every day. That's the good news. We don't have to figure out how to do this on our own. Jesus makes the connection possible for us every single day. When Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead, he made ways for us to directly connect with God. Not only that, but his very spirit is still with us. And if we stay connected with God, our lives will show it. Our relationships, our attitude, our choices, our words, all of it will be better because we're connected with God. And here's what I want you to remember. You can connect with God every day. And when you do, you'll have better understanding of God's goodness, love, compassion, perfect plan for your life. You'll see your faith grow more real, thriving, everyday kind of faith. But the question is, how do we do this? How do we make connecting with God part of our everyday lives? How do we stay connected when it comes to faith? And I just want to give you two things you can start to do today. And the first one, I want you to write this down. Can you identify ways to spend time with God? That might mean making time to read your Bible or spending time in prayer. It could be thinking about God while you're going for a walk. It could be listening, or it could be singing along to your favorite worship song. Or maybe it's writing down some thoughts or reflections about God in your journal. There are many ways you can connect with God, and all you're going to do is different things. But in a culture where we've taught to maximize our time and to maximize our schedules, we need to be Christians that learn to waste our time on God. That doesn't mean spending our time with God is a waste. It just means our most precious thing in our world today is our time, and we choose to use it on God. The second thing that I want you to write down is connect with God every day. Just as it is important for you to find time to be active for 30 minutes a day or to get in sunlight for 30 minutes a day, but how more important is it for us to spend time with God 30 minutes a day? I remember a couple weeks ago, I went to drop off something to my dad, and I haven't seen him for a couple of weeks heading into it, but I can only stay for a couple minutes. We talked, we cracked jokes, we caught up, but I remember leaving and I felt so bad that I could only stay for a couple minutes. And when I went to apologize for leaving so early, my dad told me these words that I would never forget. And he said, "Son, I'm just glad I got to see you." And can I tell you, it's the same thing when it comes to your relationship with God. It doesn't matter how long it is or what you do in your time with God. He desires to hear your voice. He desires to be with you. So here's a quote that I live by that actually comes from our lead pastor when it comes to spending our time with God. We have to make an appointment with God, and we have to keep it. make appointment with God, and we have to keep it. Even when you feel disconnected from God, even when you're not sure God is there, commit to trying to connect with God every day. If you're not sure what you'll discover when you do it, commit simply to showing up, to spend time connecting with God each and every day. This is the part of how we begin our life of faith. Remember, the best way to get to know someone and stay connected is to make an effort to spend time with them on a regular basis. The more time you spend together, the more connected you become. The best relationships in your life didn't become great after one conversation or one hangout or one experience. No, they grew over time. You had to keep showing up. You had to keep talking. You had to keep spending time together. The same is true with God. Make your faith a priority every day by showing up to connect with God, even the weeks ahead. Remember, we can connect with God every day. The more you're connecting with God every day, a part of your life, the more you'll get to know God. If you're not sure where to start, I want you to consider talking to a parent, a guardian, a trusted adult, maybe even your small group leader. We have small groups that can happen and talk about your faith, the things that are happening in your life. Why not try today by talking about what connecting with God really means to you? So when you go to groups, I want you to think about this question. What is one way you can connect with God? Well, Radiant Youth, it's been an incredible time spending some time together. So I'm actually gonna be kicking it to your location directors for you guys to go to small group. Have an incredible night.